Welcome to the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes, showing you how to do wholesaling deals consistently without having to go on seller appointments. Learn the key tips and strategies that Brandon's students use to find deeply discounted properties that are pennies on the dollar, all while avoiding wear and tear on their vehicle, body, and freedom. Whether you're looking for your first deal or your next deal, it's time to send more offers with your host, Brandon Barnes.
Hey, Dan, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you here. How's it going, man?
What's up, Brandon? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm super excited because, as we were talking pre-show, I joined the InvestorFuse world, and that was my primary CRM. That was my introduction to Podio way back in 2016. So now to be here with the founder of the InvestorFuse, which was the go-to CRM setup within Podio for a lot of real estate investors over the years. It's this full circle. Super excited to have this conversation. All the gems you're going to share.
It's been a wild ride, man, but I appreciate your support.
And had a successful exit from InvestorFuse as well just last year. So super excited to get into all of this. And now you're doing some amazing stuff, helping folks. They're building their business, right? And even acquiring some businesses. Let's jump right into that. Just with your experience with the InvestorFuse company, like what have you seen over the years? Is it really that important to have a CRM? I mean, I'm sure that there's different opinions on this, but let's talk about that from the start.
1,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000%. However, it doesn't need to be super, super fancy if you don't have a lot of volume. So merely tracking anything at all is better than not tracking anything, which 90% of investors don't do. They just get random emails and things kind of get thrown at them and they just randomly pick up the phone and hope that a deal comes in. The second that you start to track inbound leads intentionally and then marking a next action for what you're going to do with that opportunity, your whole business changes. InvestorFuse is just the scaled version of that, so that if you were to generate 1,000 leads this month, InvestorFuse will basically walk you through how to do that step by step without you feeling super overwhelmed. But easy money is in the follow-up if you have the right systems and processes to extract some of that low-hanging fruit and make sure that you're not just making money off of the people that are desperately needing to sell the moment you talk to them, but the majority of your income comes from the people that have to sell their house in the next 6 months, year and a half, and really working on building that pipeline, which eventually becomes your follow-up deals from 6 months ago become your deals for next week, and just having that build up over time. It's hard to do if you're not tracking it.
That's what I liked about it. I mean, it was, for me, you started to have your leads, you had everything categorized, you had your different systems and setups. It made life easier for me and my assistant, send offers through there, track the KPIs through there, but it also helped with just that ongoing drip automated follow-up, like sending text messages to homeowners after we spoke to them, after we contracted, or just general follow-up. So that was always super important to me. And I know it helped us do deals, but when folks are getting started, that automated sequencing, from your experience, have you seen people, really just rely on the automations that a CRM like InvestorFuse would use to kind of help power their business?
I think the automations are filling the gaps in, but the main punctuation, exclamation points in the follow-up process, are the individual touch points. So, example, in the new version of InvestorFuse, it's like an actions-driven platform, and I'm not being incentivized to sell it anymore. I'm not with the company anymore.
Right.
But our vision for it was to build it so that it just told you what to do step by step. And if you don't do something, it gets marked as an overdue action item. And we were tracking overdue actions as a KPI for a lot of our clients. And one client in particular, Jacques Pierre, if you're listening, what's up? He was tracking his overdue actions right alongside of all his other KPIs, number of new leads, number of appointments, closing rate, overdue actions in InvestorFuse. And we noticed that there was a trend. He had overdue actions for 3 weeks in a row. And then 1 week, he was just all right, guys, we got to catch up with all these follow-up reach outs, the personalized calls. And we need to make sure that every week we have as few overdue actions as possible. And then we started tracking for the next month, and we saw that as overdue actions went down, revenue went up. Like clear correlation to the more touches you're doing just on the phone, the higher chance of closing deals in the long run. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. The more conversations you have, the more deals you'll close. And the best list you have is the people that are already in your database that kind of know who you are and that might want to sell their house at some point in the next 2 years. They're either going to sell to you or they're going to sell to somebody else. And whoever has the most personalized, most authentic, and best kind of cadence for following up with people are generally going to get that deal. Of course, and whoever can make the best offer in the best way is going to get the deal.
Well, that's where the gold is. And speaking with the guy that founded the company, co-founded, right?
John Whitfield was a critical piece of the whole equation.
Give his name again, John
Whitfield. He's the CEO now.
Yes. Got it. And, I definitely saw his name, but I think we were in a similar mentor group. So I always saw your name first, or maybe it was the face. You're the face of the brand, and John was in the background.
It started, just Podio, like making YouTube videos on Facebook, and people were just like, dude, I need this. And then we realized that we couldn't really, it was hard to install 300 separate Podio workspaces. And then like whenever I had an improvement, I had to go in and like manually change everybody's space. So we decided to make our own software instead, just like using what we learned in Podio to build what people actually needed.
Love it. Well, look, I know you mentioned that having a CRM is not the magic bullet. And I know you just gave us a great example of exactly, what a CRM can do for you. But, before we move on, I'm just curious, like, what was the other or another really important thing that you learned from that entire experience working and seeing the insides and outs of a lot of investors' businesses around the country? What was one of the biggest takeaways that you would say right now to help an investor that's listening right now in their wholesale business do more deals?
Amen. So InvestorFuse in and of itself is not going to save your business. Also, having any sort of piece of software doesn't make you systemized. Usually it actually just adds more complexity the more tools and apps you install.
Very true.
So don't get it twisted. If you download an app, doesn't mean that you have a systemized operation. There's way more that goes into that. And while a CRM can help you increase your profit per lead overall, in other words, making more money out of each opportunity that comes in, the biggest way to change your business is to increase your dollar per hour productivity. In other words, how you are spending your time inside of your business. Are you spending your time on $5 an hour actions? Which, if you're using your CRM correctly, the CRM should do most of the heavy lifting in that $5 an hour space. Or are you actually spending time on high leverage things? In other words, things that if you were to execute it on today, it will save you time in the future or create more deal throughput without you having to work harder. And an example of higher leverage work would be building systems for other people to do a certain role in your job, coaching them to success in that role, measuring their results, and then doing that for each component of your business. Otherwise, you're just going to be left holding the bag, executing every aspect of the business. And that way of operating is how most investors come into this world as, thinking that they have to do everything themselves, and that they think that if they're doing everything themselves, then they have a business and that they're an entrepreneur. And my argument is that that is a very flawed way of thinking that doesn't serve the community. Because if you are a real entrepreneur, you got a team of people that are fulfilling your profit model, and you're just leading that charge. And those are two different skill sets. Doing deals is not the same as building a business that does deals. Right. There's two different allocations of time required to make each of those things happen. So that's what I saw when working with a lot of people in InvestorFuse, is that they dug in and spent way too much time trying to figure out the CRM, trying to get the Globiflow workflows to work, trying to edit the field so that they looked good, making the colors stand out, making like all these things that just have zero leverage whatsoever, when they have to be doing the deep work and figuring out, one, what is the strategy that we're committed to that we know is going to help us hit our goal this year? Two, how do we track it and make sure that every week we're actually analyzing the trends and patterns and making decisions strategically to make sure that we hit our targets. And if not, who can we leverage to actually help us with that? And then 3, how do we build a team of people that are empowered to execute these things in our business? And how do I lead them in a way that makes them feel like they're valued and that they're working in line with what they want to be in their life and their career? And leadership and strategy and all of these things are way higher leverage than like figuring out your settings in your CRM.
Right.
And so helping people shift that mindset has been my ongoing adventure this last 4 years.
Yeah. That's been your charge. You mentioned that was kind of built out of the mastermind that you guys created, and, you're, pushing forward and sharing about the 80-20 mindset, and that, more investors, more entrepreneurs need to kind of take this approach. Can you describe for me and us what the 80-20 mindset is all about? I know you kind of just gave a highlight of, where you need to be focused, but can you deep dive a little bit what that is to you?
I would love to. This is going to be a little bit of a rant, so stop me if you need.
Let's buckle in.
So I'm just going to kind of walk through the steps to quote unquote 80-20 your business. And 80-20 comes from the 80-20 principle, or Pareto's principle, which says that 20% of your inputs create 80% of your outputs. Or in other words, there's a small amount of activities that you spend your time on a day-to-day basis that give you a disproportionate amount of your results. And this is a law of nature that you can see everywhere, from wealth distribution across the world to traffic on the roads to percentage of leads that turn into deals, to percentage of deals that turn into leads, to turn into profit, to percentage of salespeople that close your deals. Like, it has business applications as well as applications in basically everywhere there's data. And it applies to time as well. And so here are the steps to 80-20 your business. 1, you have to shift your entrepreneurial identity. And that's the biggest thing. Honestly, if you want to succeed in this game, you have to transition your identity from who I call brute force Bob to 80-20 Adam. And brute force Bob's business looks like this. There's just like a trickle of leads coming in from random sources, called random acts of marketing. Like, one day he gets an email from a realtor, another day a friend calls and said his mom has a house to sell. The next day he fumbles around cold calling some random people. The next day he's doing a FISBO thing, just like grinding, doing whatever he can to get a lead. There's no cash flow. He's got a lot of debt. His team members that he might have are probably confused and not really sure what they're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. You have zero time for deep work because you feel like you have to be doing everything in the business. You're constantly chasing shiny objects, switching from strategy to strategy to strategy, and never really getting any traction on any one strategy, which makes you feel anxious, causes a lot of stress. Your team's going to feel that stress. Your family's going to feel that stress. It makes you wake up and just react to stuff every single day, randomly executing on stuff, thinking that if I figure out that one gold nugget, if I attend that one extra webinar, if I go hire this one person or buy this product, it's going to solve all my problems. When in reality is that shiny object chasing just adds to the plate of already busy things that they're juggling. They're doing the same thing as everybody else in the market. And that's not a way to scale a business, unfortunately. It's the most human way to scale a business, but we need to rise above that brute force mentality and do so with intentionality. And that is the basis of this transformation. So let's kind of walk through line by line what the difference is between brute force Bob and 80-20 Adam.
Okay.
So brute force Bob is an opportunity seeker, right? And not to discount the importance of seeking opportunities, but 80-20 Adam has already found the opportunity. If you're listening to this podcast, you already found the opportunity. It's wholesaling, it's investing, it's buying real estate for cash flow, it's flipping land, whatever it is that brought you to Brandon's show. That's the opportunity. Good. You found it. You can stop searching.
Right.
Now you have to figure out how do you just execute on the one core business model that you are most confident will get you to your goal in the next 12 months. In other words, if you're trying to make 50K and you make 10K per deal wholesaling, all you need to do is 5 deals a month, and figuring out how to do that should be your main charge. Your charge is not to launch in as many markets as possible. Your charge is not to try to figure out how to flip commercial buildings. Your charge is not it's just finding the one thing, putting horse blinders on, and just attacking that. And instead of seeking shiny objects, you are seeking an edge. How do I get to the lead faster? How do I increase the quality of my leads? How do I extract motivation from these sellers a little bit better so I'm not just hanging up the phone at the first sign of resistance? How am I, leading my team so that they're showing up and being a better, showing up for the company in a stronger way in public when they're talking to sellers? How do I create a better sales experience for the seller so they don't feel like there's some transaction? How do I dispo my deals in a way that's more effective, that doesn't rely on all my time? Seeking an edge means diving into the one core business model instead of trying to do 10 different strategies at once. Does it make sense?
It does. It does.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. I mean, because I think there's a lot of people that will say, hey, well, I'm trying marketing. I'm trying either calling or texting or mail, but, I'm getting a lot of people that are tire kickers. What do I do? It sounds like, hey, whatever your marketing channel is going to be, it's just doing enough of that activity, you'll start to find the real consistency that you're looking for. Is that right? Do you have certain students that you kind of push in a specific marketing direction to start to find these opportunities?
Generally speaking, keep doing whatever is creating results. So we had a client, Matt Young, and his partner, Tony. They were doing cold calling. It was kind of mediocre results when they first signed up. 3 months later, this month alone, it's May 19th, they got 11 contracts signed from cold calling alone. And the way that they did that is by going all in on that one thing and ignoring all this information coming at them from every which way. They made their cold caller stronger on the phone. They're doing better at turning tire kickers into actual opportunities.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, if you're on the phone with someone, especially after a cold call, and then you get back on the phone with them, the fact that they got back on the phone with you means that there's something underlying that they want you to uncover. And your job is to uncover that so that you can help them make the right decision if they need to sell their house or not. Right. And fortunately, most people, they just blame their leads for their problem when it's really a sales process thing.
Very true. Someone needed to hear that, right? You just may need to work on your closing skills, your converting skills. You're not building enough rapport. These are a few different examples of what may be missing rather than just blaming it on, hey, this channel, this list, these leads.
Yes.
I love that.
Your sales process is the 80-20 of your business, especially right now where anyone can go on YouTube and learn how to generate a lead. With AI coming on board,
right,
it's going to commoditize lead generation for everyone. So your ability to close these people is the differentiator. That is the strategic advantage. That is your edge. So invest into that.
I love that. And I think somebody needs to hear that again, because that sales being your edge and being able to convert, that is where we need to be placing our focus.
100%.
So I love that. Good stuff.
So Brute Force Bob, his natural tendency is to do everything, right? The chief everything officer, the CEO. He's in charge of dispo, acquisitions, admin, bookkeeping, lead management, data, figuring out the CR, everything. And while that's kind of what you need to do in a certain way to get going, once you've isolated a model that is getting results, your job then is to invest into team and systems instead of feeling the need to do everything yourself.
Right.
So let me caveat that. If you're just starting out in this business and you don't have a lot of capital, yes, you need to do stuff yourself. You don't need to do everything yourself. Your job, if you're just starting out, is just to get on the phone with people and make offers. That's it. You don't need to be investing into your brand identity kit, and you don't need to hire someone to build a website, and you don't need to launch in 10 markets. You just need to have 5 conversations a day with the seller, and that's it, right? So it's systematic hustle is the name of the game when you're starting out. And as soon as you start to get results from anything, your mindset has to go, okay, I had to make 100 calls today, but I got a hold of 4 people. That's a result, right? Now I can invest into team and systems to improve that result and get yourself out of the way so that you can start to do this in each department of the business. So instead of just investing all of your time trying to figure everything out yourself, you're investing into team and systems to actually execute it without you. So system basically is just the documentation, the technology, and the process for someone else to execute the thing, right? That's a system. It's not just the technology. It's also the process in and of itself. And the process can exist in the form of a checklist, a video training, an SOP, standard operating procedure. That plus the technology. So standard operating procedure for following up with leads, plus InvestorFuse, plus a dedicated full-time US-based leads manager equals a system. That is the system that will replace you from having to do all the follow-up yourself. Right. So you need to just invest into creating that. And even though it doesn't make you money right away to do this type of work, and you have to kind of sit down and do the work, it buys you back a disproportionate amount of time. And it makes it so that instead of working twice as hard to double your income, you can work half as much and double your income. It's like long-term. So that's another thing is instead of thinking short-term, you're thinking long-term business building. Short-term thinking is like just reacting to the stuff of the day. The current tactic or the deal of the day is that's your lane, versus long-term business building, which is where the whole business is the product that you're building. That makes sense?
Yeah.
It's how billionaires think about business, right? They see the business as the product versus the deal that you're trying to close that day.
Love it.
And so it's a challenge when you're first starting out, shifting from in the business to on the business. Really, if you're listening to this podcast, you can't unhear this stuff. So learning how to think long-term business building where the whole business is the product is going to make you vastly wealthy in your career if you can stick to that. But there's some mindset stuff that we have to work on. So Brute Force Bob has to deal with scarcity thinking. Not enough deals in the market, too many tire kickers, way too much competition in my market. I'm not good on the phone. Nobody will want to work for me. Remove all of those thoughts. Assume all of those thoughts are just limiting beliefs, because they are.
Yep.
And realize that there's more real estate that you could possibly imagine that you can profit on. Even though there's more wholesalers than there ever have been before, there's still more opportunity in the market than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And the ability to grow and scale a company is accessible to anyone, regardless of your personality type. As another limiting belief. It's like, you think you have to be like a Steve Jobs type of personality to lead a team. That's not true. You can just be yourself and still lead a team.
Quick question. I want to jump in here real quick and ask, because once you start to get some of those building blocks in place and you have some of the system built and you have a lead manager in place or acquisition manager and they're using the technology and they're generating leads and trying to close deals, right? That's not time for you to, sit back, focus on the next piece, next building block, whether that's a dispositions manager or you can grow to having operations manager. What have you seen from your experience and the investors that you worked with, the size of a team that can consistently do 7 figures income, let's say with a healthy profit margin, right?
Yeah.
What size teams would you say that folks should be aspiring to at least start with their core?
Yeah. So you can do it with 4 to 5 people on your team. You just need, or less, honestly. You can do it with an acquisitions manager. Okay, so if you're just starting out, first thing to do is figure out how to get out of lead generation. With AI coming, that's not going to be a problem anymore. But there are also done for you services that you can just hire to generate your leads, or you can just use like pay per lead services and just buy leads straight up if you have the cash. Or if you don't have a lot of cash and you have more time, then you just have to be disciplined about like bringing on someone that will work for a commission, right? Driving for dollars or door knocking or cold calling, whatever it is. So getting out of lead generation is the first thing so that you can focus all your energy on converting those leads. That's where your time needs to be the most spent.
Right.
And once you have that, then having a leads manager is the next hire. If you got lead generation taken care of, the highest leverage hire you can make is a dedicated leads manager. And in our training, we call them ops managers because we don't want sellers to think that they're a lead. And so sellers talk to ops managers that are basically part of the sales process, but they don't pretend to be real estate consultants, real estate specialists. Instead, a proper leads manager is like a support person that treats your seller leads like clients. So you treat them like client, you really understand and empathize with their situation, and you really talk them up or you qualify them, and then you talk up your closer or you to get them excited about talking to the closer. I mean, that setter closer model is the best way to close leads. If you're doing the setting and closing yourself, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and it's not probably the best, most professional process for the seller. But having a leads manager to weed through all the tire kickers, to actually extract the motivation out, and to put appointments on your calendar for people who are ready for an offer, and ideally ready for an offer that might be below what they're expecting, is like a game changer.
I
And so
like
we show people how to do that.
And I like the setter closer model. If you're cold calling though, as your primary marketing channel, do you still want that person in there? And I'll say that with the caveat of I've seen it and I've done it a few different ways where that lead manager comes in on the back end. So it goes cold caller to acquisition manager, which is basically somebody generating the lead, somebody trying to close, and anything that falls off of that or anything that, needs to be re-engaged and they're not ready right now, then goes to lead manager. Do you agree with, having a cold caller, then a leads manager, then a closer, or do you kind of switch it up for different marketing channels?
That's a good question. Yeah, it definitely can be switched up per marketing channel. Cold calling. So the way that we think about sales process is dig, set, and spike. So volleyball analogy.
Love it.
Ball comes over the net. It's like way in the corner. There's no way you can just return that and spike it right away. So you need to dig it up. In real estate lead gen, that's basically turning a data point into a conversation, right? The cold calling, the SMS texting, you're digging up the opportunity and getting it in the air, but it's hard to get it in the air and set it at the same time. So like ideally, you just look at it as you have a team that does the dig or the cold calling. Then you have a setter team that takes those opportunities and tees it up for the spike. And the closer, their job is to basically to present the offer and to push through any resistance or objections to get them to say yes. And those are two different skill sets. There are some caveats. And again, everything is like an experiment where you're tracking your numbers and seeing what works best.
It is.
With cold calling, if the person is like desperately needs to sell and it's like not even a hot lead, but like a whatever the next level is, like
smoking hot
lead,
right?
That can be sent right to the closer. If it's not a smoking hot opportunity, it needs to be properly warmed up in order for you to get the best possible price on that deal.
Love it.
If that's why you do setting, it's not to throw a wrench in the process or to get you more appointments. It's to get you appointments where you can get the contract for lower. That's why you do setting.
Yeah. Like you said, yeah, it is. It does. Because like you said, there's so many wrinkles to this because you could be talking about virtual closing, in-person closing, right? But either way, I do like that, and I do 100% agree with you of having that dig, that set, and that spike. Those three different layers is super important, whether you put the setting in the front or on the backside. So say, for instance, in your example, it's a smoking hot lead. It goes from somebody dug it up to trying to spike it, but then they weren't quite ready yet. You need that setter to continue to re-engage, right? Until they are ready. And then you send it back to get spiked. So I love that.
Another beauty of the setter is they are the master of the CRM. The closer shouldn't be in the CRM.
Okay. That's good because some people will live in podio, for lack of a better term, podio hell, right? Where you're getting ding, 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 a bunch of reminders of, failed actions to your point. And so I like that.
Imagine if you had a liaison to your CRM where you just do your appointments, you do your sales calls, and then you send a Voxer over to your setter, your leads manager and say, hey, I just talked with Paul. We're going to do the deal at $50K, draw up the contract and send it over or whatever it is. Hang up. You don't have to go into your CRM to do all that stuff because your setter is going to go and log it. He's going to move the stage over. He's going to make the transaction on your whiteboard. Having that like mechanism in place completely frees up the closer to do what they do best. Closers aren't built to be in their CRM.
Love it.
We built InvestorFuse for the lead manager, not for the closer.
Got it. You were giving a lot of great advice and actionable information for the person that's looking to really build and get their business up from just hustling real estate to actually doing deals on a regular basis. Are there any other examples of the two different types of person that, we need to continue to aspire to do more of?
Yeah. So I would say if you're feeling overwhelmed by all this, the way to cure overwhelm is just to make a plan. Right. And if you don't know what that plan should be, it's Who, Not How, which is a great book. And the secret to life. There's someone on the planet that's figured out the thing you're having trouble with. I don't think anyone's figured out the meaning of life. But in business, any challenge that you have, there's a who that can immediately connect you to the solution versus you spending 3 years trying to figure it out, right? So who, not how, instead of immediately going to analytical mode and trying to figure out how to do something, being a part of some type of community or having a resource like this podcast or Facebook group, whatever it is, or even a mentor that you can just call, it really is like the secret. So that is the best way to cure overwhelm, and being specific as well. So what specifically are you overwhelmed about? What have you tried up to this point to fix it? What are you leaning towards in order to fix it? Are things that will help you kind of uncover what the real sticking point is. Because overwhelm is just a feeling. The solution to overwhelm is to figure out the source of it. That's kind of a little mindset thing. Another important thing is to speak to the reactionary execution. Willy-nilly doesn't make $1 million businesses. It's executing intentionally by the numbers. So it's actually looking at what happened last week. Did I do better than I did the week before? Yes or no? If no, how do we improve? And the only way to do that is to look at the actual stats, like how many leads came in, how many turned into appointments, how many appointments did we close? And digging into all those little things that happen in between those handoffs is where you really grow and get results. And if you can have people on your team that are accountable to each of those numbers, and their job is just to do better than they did the week before, it's a game changer. And that's why KPIs are so important. But people don't track their KPIs because they're afraid to see the truth.
Right.
That they suck at closing, that they're not generating enough leads, that their team isn't performing. And I get it. Like, I would be afraid to see that truth too, but the truth will set you free. And just tracking those 3 things, like leads, appointments, deals, just start doing that over the next month. And when you start to actually write down what your goal is and what actually happened, your brain automatically tries to figure out how to improve it. Wow. And it stops finding other things to do. And it's a discipline that you really need to work on. And the best way to do that, though, is not just to track your numbers randomly. It's to track your numbers and see patterns over time. And we do that with a red, green, yellow scorecard type system. It's like a stoplight system.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to get 10 leads a day and I'm noticing that we're only hitting 5 leads a day for 3 weeks in a row, well, then it's red, red, red. I know that we have to dig in and figure out how to improve that. Or if the goal is 10 leads per day, because I know if I can get 10 leads per day, then we can get 1 contract a week, which means we can make 4 deals a month or whatever your goals are. Then I can see, oh, but we're actually getting 12 leads a day. So it's green, green, green. And if you're green for more than 3 weeks in a row, it's time to increase your targets. So the goal is actually to be yellow. It's like to be approaching your goal, but not always hitting it, and raising it once you start to hit it consistently. And it's like getting in, that's executing by the numbers. It's the secret to scaling a business.
Love it. And that was one of kind of the last questions I wanted to talk to you about, was about kind of business building. But you said something in there that I don't want to go past, because it sounds like you have some insight on a specific topic, and that maybe AI lead generation. When you mentioned that a few times, like, all right, so what are you thinking? What are you seeing? How is AI going to be able to help? Do you think it's going to be a product, service provider, or individuals using AI to generate their own leads through some medium?
Yep. So AI for lead generation is going to be the first highest leverage use case of artificial intelligence in this industry. And myself and my partners are figuring it out as we speak. And literally over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be rolling out something that basically books appointments for you. The mechanism by which that happens, I'm going to keep for when we launch it so you can see it. It's amazing. But you've all interfaced with ChatGPT. Like, if you tell ChatGPT that it's a real estate investor, like, try it right now. Go to ChatGPT and say, you are a real estate investor. You buy homes for cash and you help people out of financial distress and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to pretend to be a seller. Have a conversation with me. And like, have a conversation with it. You'll see that it's already, just with that information, going to be better than any VA that you would hire. Like, it's crazy. So knowing that information and knowing that you can plug that API into texting and Messenger and like voicemails and everything, is we're trying to harness that and build something as quickly as possible that let you basically eliminate cold calling, eliminate the need to live answer any inbound calls, and basically just put qualified leads on your calendar. And so assuming that
go in some deep fake or some voice, some AI voice, actually speak for you,
dude.
Jeez.
It's crazy. It's crazy what you can do. You can send ringless voicemails to people using deep fake voice. So you can send personalized RVMs to like hundreds of thousands of people.
That is amazing. Well, look, guys, you got to listen to the end to hear how to follow Dan exactly. So as soon as it drops, I'm sure he's going to be able to share where you can find out more about this. But to put a bow on that last question, about, what you've been doing now, buying businesses, just really quickly, tell us how you got into that. Did that come off the heels, a successful exit from InvestorFuse? Like, what's your vision and how's that going for you?
Yeah. So in my never ending quest for finding leverage, I realized that my skills in building business and replacing myself, the next level up application of that skill set is buying businesses. So what I show people to do is go from in the business where they're doing everything themselves to working on the business where they're investing into systems and operators that will run everything. But the next level up, once you master that, is working above the business. And this is basically where you're allocating capital, strategic decisions, and that's pretty much it. You're allocating capital so money turns into more money in order to acquire equity in businesses. And some of the wealthiest real estate investors I know, they all own multiple businesses that all support each other. So not only do they own a rehabbing business, but they own the construction business, they own the flipping business, the wholesaling business, they own the title company, they own the insurance company, they own think about all of the ecosystem that you would need to close a deal. They basically own every part of that. And so they've created this wealth building machine. They own the marketing agency that generates the leads. And so a good way to think about it is think about all your expenses right now and how you can turn those expenses into an asset. And I follow a guy by the name of Roland Frazier, check his podcast out, Business Lunch. It's really gets you thinking about how you can use the skill set of systemizing an operation and, leading an amazing team of people on one strategy, applying that to multiple companies, acquiring equity in those companies, helping them scale. The reason why that's higher leverage is because you're working on the business as the product. And when you sell a business, you make a multiple of the revenue or EBITDA of that business, which means that you can basically get 7 years of income all in 1 year by selling the business. So it's how the big boys make a ton of money. And right now I'm actively looking to acquire service-based businesses in the business to business services space. So think recruiting companies, data companies, marketing agencies, systems consultants, staffing firms, things like that. It's kind of my world. And if you know anybody, let me know. I can help.
Look, that's the next mountaintop. And I asked that question because I know we talked about it pre-show, but I want for every listener to have, hey, where can I take this thing? What should I be striving for in the future? And then maybe for everybody that's not, buying businesses, but to your point, a lot of great real estate investors, they have all these different businesses within the ecosystem so they can control all, turn the costs into assets and whatnot. So, just to give people a snapshot at what's possible from a guy who's had a successful and amazing exit, from a SaaS company, right? And I love that. And I'm sure that is going to inspire some folks. But look, I can't let you leave before putting you through the lightning round. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Cool. So Dan, I have a series of rapid fire questions. You don't know the question. I don't know your answers. So just say the very first thing that comes to your mind. What's one book that inspired you as a real estate investor? Actually, take that back. You just mentioned one, but I was going to say one book that's been instrumental to your growth just as a business owner.
Book called Multipliers.
Good stuff. Who's that by?
Forgot the name, but it basically shows you why your good intentions as a leader oftentimes diminishes people's value in your company. It's a lot of hit you in the face moments.
Love it. Love it. If you could have drinks or coffee with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Tim Ferriss. He's my systems thinking man crush.
Yeah, man. I love everything that he puts out. His podcast is super long, but
yeah, they are.
There's still some great content. What's your best advice for someone looking to do their very first wholesale deal? I know you've given a ton of advice already.
Leverage real estate agents.
I I love that. That's gold. And it's been super popular, agent outreach, everything else. I think that that's something that not enough of us are doing a good job with.
If you message 100 real estate agents who have sold a fixer in the last year, a handful of them will respond, yeah, I got one coming up in this area. I haven't listed it yet. You want to check it out. Guaranteed.
Good stuff.
So buy me a beer later.
Right. Yes, you know it's coming. What's one mistake on a deal or in business in general that if you had a do-over, you would take that do-over?
I am thinking that the one do-over that I could have done was
a deal or business in general.
Yeah, it's a good question. I tend to think that all my decisions, despite being mistakes, taught me something. But I would say like firing myself sooner.
That's a good one. You should have fired yourself a little sooner.
I should have fired myself way sooner.
And out of which business specifically?
InvestorFuse.
Okay. Love it.
Or all my businesses.
Even better. So typically the next question is, what's the financial goal that you have set for your team for this calendar year? But let's change that up a bit. What's the goal for business acquisitions that you have in the next, 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years, I'd like to acquire $10 million in equity from businesses, help them increase the valuation to 100 mil.
Good stuff. If you woke up tomorrow with $500 million deposited into your account overnight, what's the first thing that you would go out and purchase with that newfound money?
A sailboat for my dad.
Nice. Love it.
And shopping spree for my wife.
There you go. And very last one, what is the piece of advice that you would tell the person that's listening right now that's looking to scale their business currently?
One piece of advice for people that are looking to scale their business? Who, not how.
Not how. Love it. Typically, oftentimes when I'd ask a question about, if for somebody struggling, getting a mentor, I thought was always the best answer. But I think that that's kind of what that speaks to, right? There's somebody out there that
exactly at the career level. So like talk to somebody that wants to help you at the career level, not at the deal specific level, because that's where the magic happens. Because oftentimes you might find out like, oh, maybe I am in the wrong role in my business, or maybe this isn't the right strategy that I'm focusing on. So it's like, instead of trying to figure out how to do the wrong thing better, figure out if you're doing the right thing in the first place and talk to someone about your career. That's what I mean. Who, not how.
Good stuff. Thank you. Well, look, man, this has been great. And we've talked about everything under the sun, from building the business that supports you, the 80-20 mindset. You gave us some great advice, literally step by step, brick by brick, how to really build out a team that supports you and where to focus, changing our mindset. Really great advice. And as well, even excited us about some potential AI opportunities for lead generation and lead purchasing, right?
Oh yeah.
The future. So let us know how we can follow along with your journey and where we will be able to hear about everything that you have coming up in the future.
Yeah. So I have a free Facebook group. If you go to scalingrei.com, it'll forward you to the Facebook group, totally free. Request to join. We do lives in there every Thursday, myself and Coach Eric, who is the sales master. And that's where all announcements will be. And you can reach out to me and hang out with me in there.
Awesome. Any social media that you're a part of? YouTube?
Yeah. Scaling Real Estate Investors is kind of the hub for all the other social media stuff.
Okay. Perfect.
So scalingrei.com.
Good stuff. Well, guys, while you're at it, please don't forget to head over to sendmoreoffers.com. There's nothing there for sale, but just a bunch of great information from all these amazing guests. And you can even chat with me if you're in Atlanta, if you're looking to do a deal, have a deal, I can help you with one. Just give me a shout at sendmoreoffers.com. Dan, this has been great, man. I can't wait to hear what you got cooking. And I know it's a super secret, but you got to let me in on it. And I'm super excited to see everything that you do in every business that you build and grow in the future. So cheers to you and all the best.
Thank you so much, man. And back at you. You're really putting out some awesome stuff. I've looked at all the guests and it's really valuable stuff to all the listeners. Keep listening. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Dan, well, we'll definitely be tuning in. And guys, as always, send more offers, do more deals. Until next time, peace.
That's all for this episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show with Brandon Barnes. But we know you're craving more knowledge to get yourself ready for that next deal. To schedule a call with Brandon to learn more about how to do deals consistently without seller appointments in a repeatable way, be sure to visit us at sendmoreoffers.com. And be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Send More Offers Real Estate Show.